As an Australian and as a NASA astronaut, I've seen the real advantages that have come through international cooperation in the exploration of the solar system. In the past 50 years, there's really been no better demonstration of that cooperation than the partnership between the United States and Australia through NASA's Deep Space Network.
To stay in constant radio contact with robotic spacecraft exploring the solar system and beyond, NASA established 3 tracking stations, located near Madrid, Spain, Goldstone, California, and just outside Canberra, Australia. Coordinated through the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, they form NASA's Deep Space Network. Responsibility for operating and maintaining each of the complexes falls to a close team of dedicated men and women who share their knowledge and expertise around the world.
The collaboration between the 3 sites, Goldstone, Madrid and Canberra, is crucial to us. We all tend to be maintaining very similar equipment, and there are certain things that are learnt on the different sites. We all strive to try and achieve the best outcomes.
The cooperation is we have a real-time interface with them. Anything that we need to ask them, they tell us their experiences, and we also pass on any experience that they may not have. We cooperate 100%.
By command, by command.
Ever since we took our first steps beyond Earth to explore the universe around us, Australia has played a vital role in the exploration of space. Antennas across the country supported NASA's first satellites and followed their astronauts as they journeyed into Earth orbit.
Oh, that view is tremendous.
They also provided telemetry, command and ranging for a fleet of deep space probes headed for the Moon and the planets beyond.
Liftoff.
It could get quite exciting. I remember back to the days of Lunar Orbiter when I first started. There were several spacecraft going around the Moon, and you could hear the beat of a spacecraft come in as you were trying to lock up to it.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The marvellous thing was how well the Americans trusted us. They trusted our judgment, they trusted us for being competent, professional people, and they listened to the people on the station.
Today, the Canberra Deep Space Communication Complex stands alone as the Southern Hemisphere's only deep space tracking station. Supporting the missions of many nations and dozens of spacecraft every day, each process in the communication path relies on teams of highly skilled personnel. Their work focuses on areas of antenna maintenance, systems engineering, spacecraft communications, and logistics administration.
The best thing about working here is the people. They are so sharp, so professional, so dedicated. Many of them have been here for decades, and there's something about our culture that's so caught up in getting this right, in making these missions work.
We operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so you had to choose people that is compatible with each other.
We can be called up at any time to come out and repair an antenna and get it back online.
It might get a bit isolated at times, so being able to refer to someone else that has the exact same knowledge and expertise in the area is excellent.
Dedication of staff is crucially important because they might have to make split-second decisions on their own to keep the systems running so that the operations can get back on a spacecraft. And in the middle of the night, that's you want somebody that's totally dedicated.
It takes 3 days to get to the Moon. It takes 7 months to get all the way to Mars.
The incredible discoveries made in space over the last 50 years would not have been possible without the role played by the hundreds of men and women who have worked at the tracking stations.
I think that takes pictures.
They stand as an inspiration to the next generation of space explorers who just now are looking to the stars.
It's our people I'm so proud of. It's their dedication, their professionalism. More than that, they love what they do. The anniversary of 50 years of partnership in space tracking, it's a great opportunity for us to reflect on the accomplishments in science, engineering, and goodwill of our long history. But it's also a great opportunity to look ahead. On site, we're currently building a new state-of-the-art antenna to usher us well into the 21st century.
The success of the Deep Space Communication Complex and the Deep Space Network is founded on its people and the strength of an international collaboration stretching back to the beginnings of space exploration.
It's the thrill of being a part of something that's so magnificent in concept and yet requires so much attention to detail. And these are the guys that do it. We'll be here in partnership with the Deep Space Network, as long as there's a Deep Space Network.
G'day and welcome to CSIRO. I'm Glenn Paul. You've no doubt heard of the deadly Hendra virus, which came out of nowhere back in 1994. And it showed, like many other animal diseases, that it's capable of crossing over into the human population. That's why I've come here to CSIRO's Australian Animal Health Laboratory in Geelong, Victoria, to meet the scientists working on the front line of Australia's defence in fighting exotic and emerging diseases. The day of my visit coincided with the opening of a new biosafety level 4 laboratory, which, if you've seen the Hollywood movie Contagion, will know is the most biosecure laboratory you can get. To officially open the new wing, Professor Martin Jago was coordinating a ribbon-cutting ceremony between the Minister for Innovation, Industry, Science and Research, Senator the Honourable Kim Carr, and Dr Glenn Marsh via video link from the biosecure unit deep within the solid concrete walls of the complex.
On the count of three, if I may, can I ask you both to cut the ribbon? We'll do this in a virtual manner. So, Glenn, are you ready?
I'm ready, Martin.
1, 2, 3.
With proceedings now out of the way, I was keen to leave the celebrations and check out the new lab. However, had I known what was involved, I might have opted to stay for cake instead. Safety Officer Debbie Logan explained the procedure for going secure with the help of a mock-up airlock.
If you see someone in there, please step out of the change area. Otherwise, this is where you'll take off all your clothing, and all your clothing gets put into your arcade locker, which is D, along with the badge that you're wearing. So you're staying there naked. Even your underwear. Some people seem to think taking their underwear in because they're opening and closing doors. Please leave your underwear here. So you're staying there naked.
With the induction complete, I met up with Emma, who would act as my guide through the biosecurity maze. So we're going to go in here now. There's a lot of nasties beyond this door, as you can see. So this is where I have to get all my gear off, get naked, and head on through to the other side. I won't be able to take that big camera through because the decontamination would likely destroy it, so I'm going to film the rest of this on this little camera here. The airlock separating the two worlds would act as a decontamination shower on the way out. Press this button here. Wait a few moments. Dressed in the functional attire that had been left for me, I was ready to venture out. Alright. It's about now that it really starts to hit home, just exactly where you are, sharing living space with some of the deadliest diseases on the planet. The scientists working at the highest level of biosecurity have to wear biosecure laboratory suits, which take a bit of getting into. But going to work with dangerous and exotic agents that are fatal to humans and where there are no vaccines or other treatments available, for scientists like Sean Todd, you wouldn't have it any other way. But now suited up, he's ready to put in the boot. Before entering the hot zone, I caught up with the director of the facility, Professor Martin Jego, and asked him about the new laboratory.
It's a new laboratory within our current laboratory complex. And what it's addressing is the issue that we've seen a change in the risk. The risk used to be from most of these nasty viruses to our livestock industries. But we've seen more recently an emergence of these diseases from livestock into humans. There's a lot of changes that are occurring on our planet. There's many more of us. We're travelling in a way we never used to travel before. We're entering areas of our ecosystem that we didn't used to go in before. We've got climate change, and climate change is allowing these viruses to be in different places. We're urbanising them, we're into much larger groups, and viruses like large groups of animals or humans to work with. All of those things have resulted in a changed risk profile, and so increasingly we're seeing actually viruses come from wildlife into our domestic animals and then into humans. 75% of new infectious diseases in humans arise from animals. So this new lab allows us to work with those viruses that affect not just livestock, but man as well. In fact, the vast majority of the viruses we work with now, there is no treatment in man. So we have to make absolutely certain that our guys are safe when working with these. That's what this new lab does.
And stepping into the ring with these bad boys every day, you certainly would want the best in protection. With that, it was time for some decontamination.
And here is the shower, which I'll step into shortly, and totally wash myself and leave all these clothes here on this side. So when I go through the door on the other side, I've got nothing with me that was over in the secure area.
You might be wondering what happens to all the shower water. What if I have picked up some bug that gets washed out down the drain? Well, there's absolutely no possibility of that. All wastewater and sewage is treated on site. Nothing gets out, not even air, without being filtered and treated. It is, after all, the world's most advanced high-containment laboratory. CSIRO's Australian Animal Health Laboratory. It's here that scientists draw the line in the sand in their fight against deadly animal and human disease. And if you'd like to find out more about the research, the work going on here at the Australian Animal Health Laboratory, just visit our website, www.csiro.au.
CSIRO's Australian Animal Health Laboratory, known as OWL, is a frontline defence, helping to protect Australia from the threat of exotic and emerging animal diseases. This national facility has developed a significant international reputation as one of the world's finest animal bioscience research laboratories. And it's the most sophisticated laboratory in the world for the safe handling and containment of infectious microorganisms. Opened in Geelong, Victoria in 1985, the laboratory was the most technically complex of its time. OWL's reputation for engineering excellence continues today, with the recent implementation of award-winning contemporary automation and control system technologies. Research is undertaken here to develop new diagnostic tests and other decision support tools for limiting disease spread, and for the creation of new vaccines and treatments to protect animals and humans from disease. The threat that infectious diseases pose to human, animal and environmental health is a global concern. In the last 20 years, some 30 new and highly infectious diseases have been identified, including Hendra virus, SARS, Ebola and HIV/AIDS. Many of these diseases don't have a cure.
4 years ago, the Australian government recognised the need to invest in research infrastructure across Australia and set aside $500 million for this. One key area for the government is biosecurity, and the Australian Animal Health Laboratory is the largest national facility in this area, and so it was agreed there would be investment to improve this facility. CSIRO used the funding to build a state-of-the-art facility that would permit research scientists from across Australia to work in a biosecure and a biosafe environment with the nastiest bugs that affect our wildlife, our domestic animals and humans.
Located within OWL's Advanced High Biocontainment Facility is the OWL Collaborative Biosecurity Research Facility, known as the ACBRF. It's the most advanced facility of its kind in the world, and provides Australia with a unique opportunity to lead biosecurity research globally. As well as undertaking the identification and characterisation of viruses, this new facility will be used to investigate the origin, development and treatment of animal and zoonotic diseases, or diseases that are harmful to both people and animals. Before entering the laboratory, scientists pressurise the fully encapsulating positive pressure suit, the latest model available to scientists, and check both air supplies to ensure their equipment and lifelines are operating efficiently. Once inside, they can then move around freely. The ACBRF provides scientific staff with an opportunity to work with small laboratory animals, including insects, inside 3 spacious animal rooms. There's also an ante-room for equipment, including freezers and centrifuges, and a large general laboratory. This general laboratory is unique, as it allows up to 12 scientists to work at any one time within the specialised space on research of national importance at the highest level of biosecurity. It has 5 independent workstations and features state-of-the-art equipment, including Class 2 biological safety cabinets and incubators. The ACBRF also incorporates the OWL Biosecurity Microscopy Facility, a specialist microscopy service that enables fundamental research with infectious disease agents that require the highest levels of containment. The control room overlooks the imaging facility where scientists can communicate with staff and remotely control the microscope.
One area that excites me about this new PC4 lab is that for the first time in the world, we'll be able to use live infectious viruses to infect living cells. We will be able to use microscopes to record the virus attaching to the cell, entering the cell, replicating and leaving the cell. In addition, we'll be able to look at the impact of the virus on the cell and transmit those images in real time to researchers here at OWL within Australia and overseas.
Although the laboratory is in the heart of OWL's secure area, staff aren't isolated from other parts of the facility or the outside world. They can communicate with each other, make contact with the central monitoring officers, as well as with scientists outside the laboratory at any time. All activities within the facility are under 24-hour closed-circuit TV surveillance. This footage can be viewed over a secure web connection and interfaced into a new communication system called the Biosecurity Collaboration Platform. OWL's original suit room will be used as a secondary work area when the large PC4 laboratory is decontaminated and shut down for maintenance. This is a mandatory requirement and will occur on an annual basis. In building this laboratory, the CSIRO has worked and continues to work closely with regulators to ensure the new facility meets all the current requirements set by the Australian Government's Office of the Gene Technology Regulator and the Australian Quarantine and Inspection Service, all done as part of the CSIRO's commitment to operating a safe and secure laboratory. The ACBRF complements existing facilities within OWL's biocontainment area. For example, the large animal facility is the most sophisticated microbiologically secure research facility of its kind in the world. It provides the CSIRO with the ability and flexibility to work with any animal species and pathogens at the highest level of biosecurity. The ACBRF also offers a specialised training facility to help scientists gain experience and confidence working in conditions that mimic a PC4 environment. This facility is designed to avoid the distractions, delays, and most importantly, the risks associated with training in an active workspace. Everything within the ACBRF is treated before it leaves. The air is filtered, all sewage is heat-treated, and solid waste is incinerated. As part of this biocontainment procedure, all staff leaving the laboratory must complete a 7-minute chemical wash before removing and leaving behind their suit and laboratory clothes. They must then shower out through an airlock. The shower process is then repeated in order to exit the secure area. Once outside the laboratory, staff must not have contact with livestock animals for 7 days. In the past 2 decades, the CSIRO has been at the forefront of the discovery and control of several significant emerging infectious diseases, including equine influenza, Hendra virus and SARS. The laboratory continues to be a partner in numerous research collaborations, both nationally and internationally. The CSIRO welcomes and encourages the international research community to work within the ACBRF on a marginal cost recovery basis to undertake projects of global importance.
This facility can make a real difference to Australian biosecurity and to the health of our people, our livestock and indeed our environment.
Thanks to a strong resources sector, Australia's economy has weathered the global financial crisis. But overall productivity has dropped, placing us behind other OECD countries. Around 80% of our GDP comes from the services industries. Yet while workers of developing nations increase their skills, our productivity is declining. We need to do things in ways we never thought possible. Innovation and a thriving digital economy are essential for Australia's economic growth and international standing. CSIRO's Digital Productivity and Services flagship is a $40 million research initiative aiming to help businesses and government deliver services in a more innovative, faster and better way. By boosting the generation, transmission and consumption of digital services. By improving ways of delivering services and making the most of the national broadband infrastructure, we'll tackle the big challenges and create smarter and more secure infrastructure. Rising health costs and an ageing population threaten our health system, and change is needed. We're working with Australian health service providers to offer tools, technologies and insights to help them manage increasing demand for health services Australia-wide. Our research and innovation will help people in the way they can access healthcare and improve the delivery of health services to remote communities. Government and business generate massive volumes of data, but making sense of this information and using it to guide decision-making can be difficult and costly. We're helping organisations improve their productivity and boost effectiveness in the way services are delivered, resulting in increased competitiveness, the development of new products, and greater efficiency of services. Securing Australia's physical and cyber infrastructure is an ever-increasing challenge. Collaborating with government agencies and private industry, we're creating smarter solutions to enhance and protect Australia's critical infrastructure. Our high-performance technologies will increase the productivity of industry, and emerging broadband-enabled services will unlock the value of a national broadband infrastructure. CSIRO's research expertise places us in a leading position to tackle Australia's productivity decline. Some of our work will be in labs, but most of it will happen in businesses and departments across Australia, as we create opportunities for technology to improve the way services are delivered. By 2025, the Digital Productivity and Services flagship aims to create $4 billion in added value per year for the economy, and most exciting of all, shape an innovative digital future for all Australians. Historically, strong quarantine measures and geographic isolation coupled with world-class research, have protected Australia from some of the most serious impacts posed by exotic pests and diseases that are circulating around the world. But our enviable biosecurity status is increasingly threatened by growing connections to the world through global trade, the movement of plants, animals and people across the globe, and by the uncertain impacts of climate change. We no longer have the luxury of relative isolation as we face an unpredictable and interconnected biosecurity environment. Biosecurity is about the management of risks to our health, economy, industries and environment from pests and pathogens entering, spreading or establishing in Australian waters or on our soil. Through a proud history of biosecurity research, CSIRO has made a significant contribution to Australia's biosecurity status. We've diagnosed devastating pests and pathogens in plants and animals and responded quickly to limit negative impacts during emergencies. Designed integrated strategies to manage invasive pests in agriculture. Developed and evaluated important vaccines and therapeutics. And delivered biological control for invasive animals and many exotic weeds that are found in production landscapes and the wider environment. The CSIRO Biosecurity Flagship builds on these successes, bringing scale and connectivity to help Australia prevent, prepare for and respond to the spread and impacts of pests and diseases. We're achieving this by working across the biosecurity continuum, investigating risks offshore, at the border and monitoring what is happening in our own backyard. And we're exploring social sciences and smart technologies for detection, surveillance, response and diagnosis. In the last 20 years, a staggering 70% of emerging infectious diseases in people have been found to have originated in animals. We're taking an integrated approach across human and animal health, ecology and environmental science, commonly called One Health, to understand how these viruses spread between wild animals, livestock and people, and how to reduce the risks or be prepared for rapid response in a human pandemic situation. Our expertise places us in a leading position to investigate major biosecurity issues now and in the future. We care about high-quality science that delivers impact for Australia. And by continuing to partner with government, industry, universities and other international agencies, we can make a difference and protect the health of our people, economy, industries and environment from biosecurity threats.
Since we started flying satellites and scientific investigations into deep space, we needed a capability in the Southern Hemisphere, for one thing, that would enable us to be certain that we could track these various missions. Just as we're going to see over the next 20 years, most of our missions going to deep space are going to be best viewed from the Southern Hemisphere. So once again, CSIRO and the communications complex here at Canberra will play a key role. That is the primary reason that we came looking for something, and it was here, all the way back to the very beginning for NASA. The communications complex here in Canberra as a part of CSIRO has been an incredible partnership for us for 50 years now. It is through this particular complex that we saw Neil Armstrong take his first step on the moon. It's through this complex that we saw Voyager leave our solar system and go into interstellar space, and it's through the work of CSIRO and the Canberra Communications Complex that we actually saw Curiosity at least a second before we did in the United States when it landed on Mars. So this is a continuation of our incredible partnership. NASA is about exploring, and we have learned through our own 50-plus year history that we don't do anything alone. So everything that we do is going to be done with international partners. When it comes to communication, this is here and Spain are our principal international partners. And being here in Canberra, where that partnership started 50 years ago, is one of the reasons that we're here to celebrate the 50th anniversary. I'm asked frequently, how do we get young Australian boys and girls to be excited about becoming a part of the exploration community? I think that is the key role that CSIRO has played and will have to play even more in the future. There are very few people who actually get an opportunity to go fly. There are thousands, literally thousands of people who support us when we do that, and many of them are right here in Australia. When we go to an asteroid by 2025, or when we put humans on Mars in the 2030s, it will be absolutely critical for young Australians to be a part of that team so that we can communicate with our spacecraft that are doing those missions. You know, I'm here because it's the 50th anniversary of the communications complex, but more importantly, as we build this, CSIRO and the communications complex here run it for NASA. So in essence, we are CSIRO. It's an incredible partnership, an invaluable partnership that has existed for years and we hope will exist for decades to come.
My career is kind of very interesting because when I was in high school, I wanted to be an engineer, not biologist. But accidentally, I went to a university to study biology, and eventually came to Australia and joined the CSIRO, and that's where I started sort of virus research. And so for the last 10 years or so, we have been really successful in leading this area of research internationally. So hantavirus was the first really high lethal virus. And through our collaboration with Queensland people, and we discovered that it actually originated from bats. And so the OCE Science Leader program provided us to start to research into bats. And that has led to many important discoveries of how bats may be different from other mammals, and which will have a real impact on our understanding how to prevent bat viruses. And also, bats are long-living mammals, so we can learn from them about longevity and their ability to combat cancer and other diseases. For viral outbreaks, when they happen, usually it's very quick and acute. So when they emerge, everybody is asking why, can you do this, in a short time? And so funding is not an issue. But this kind of outbreak, as I said before, does not happen very often. So we compare this kind of a disease outbreak almost like a wartime. You're fighting the emerging infectious disease. It's very rapid, high mortality, sometimes a lot of deaths. And so during wartime, we have all the resources and try to combat the disease. But during non-outbreak time or peacetime, we found it's very difficult to attract attention and funding. So that's, I think, is one of the major challenges. So a more efficient strategy is try to prevent them. And the best way to prevent them is to do surveillance, and so that we can know their sort of outbreak in a very early stage, and so you have early detection, early warning. I think the OCE Science Leader really helped our research in many different aspects. I think the first one of them is really the opportunity to perform science, with the freedom operation, And so looking at my career, so I started from not liking this area to now I'm really enjoying contributing to the science, but more importantly, save lives and increase the biosecurity of Australia.
Manufacturing is an important part of the Australian economy. It stimulates jobs, investment and sales in downstream sectors that provide us with food, energy and health services. But the industry has been in a state of transition for many decades. What worked for us in the past won't work in the future. As the global industry transforms through increasing levels of customisation, advances in digital connectivity and analytics, blurring lines between manufacturing and service provision, and the need for more sustainable operations, we need to consider what Australia's role will be in this evolving landscape. The vision for Australia's future manufacturing industry is that of an integrated, collaborative and export-focused ecosystem that provides high-value customised solutions within global value chains. To realise this vision, strategic decisions must be made today. We must ask, what opportunities exist to help Australian manufacturers achieve sustained growth? What emerging technologies can unlock these opportunities? How can we better prepare our businesses for an increasingly volatile future? And how can government, research, education and businesses collaborate? Drawing on the world-class research expertise of our 5,000 science professionals, plus our deep industry and business connections, our advanced manufacturing roadmap outlines unique strategic insights into each of these questions and more. Download your copy today and lead the change.
In the 20th century, life expectancy doubled. If we want to double it again, we'll need to catch health problems long before they appear. That's why at CSIRO, we are investing millions in Probing Biosystems, an ambitious effort to measure the human body in real time to improve health for longer and better lives. We're working on wearable and implantable sensors to detect health problems early and send live updates to your doctor. A breath test to predict asthma attacks hours before they happen. And a better way to track aging using new routine saliva tests instead of infrequent blood tests to collect more and better data. We're developing new technology to replace animal testing with lab-grown organoids like a tiny brain and a tiny gut for faster, more accurate drug trials that bring innovations to market sooner. And we're creating new treatments like a gel that helps to monitor brain tumours after surgery and releases personalised medicine via remote control. Information will be key to making humans and the animals we depend on healthier in the 21st century. And Probing Biosystems will deliver data as we strive to improve life quality together with life expectancy. It's all part of CSIRO's Future Science Platforms, a multi-year, multidisciplinary investment in our collective future.
A universal challenge to improve human health and well-being is driving growth for the global medical technologies and pharmaceutical sector, the MTP sector. This presents an opportunity for Australia's own MTP sector, which plays an essential role in our economy, adding to exports, GDP, and providing access to highly skilled jobs. Changes to the global landscape, such as shifting demographics, new biosecurity pressures, digital disruption, and changing societal expectations, are creating exciting opportunities for Australia's MTP sector. However, the value of goods and services provided by the sector has decreased over the last 5 years. To remain competitive and capitalise on global growth opportunities, Australian MTP businesses must adapt. Businesses must ask, how can they create and participate in an ecosystem that efficiently translates inventive ideas into innovative solutions? What are their existing strengths that can be leveraged to define a global competitive advantage? Where do the global opportunities lie that will lead to long-term growth? What investments in science, technology and research will be required to achieve such growth? Drawing upon our connections with industry and the world-class research expertise of our 5,000 science professionals, we've developed a roadmap that outlines these questions and more. Download your copy today and lead the change.
As we could see from the spectacular images playing on the screens earlier, viruses can be surprisingly beautiful close up, but we know they're also dangerous, potentially deadly in fact. The CSIRO is at the forefront of the battle against infectious diseases. From the flu some of us will be unlucky enough to deal with this winter, to the Hendra virus and even Ebola. The nature of the work means the scientists developing ways to protect the public, such as life-saving vaccines, are often toiling away in highly secure labs. So tonight we have the rare and exciting opportunity to take a peek behind the scenes and to hear about the world-leading work being done to battle these potentially deadly diseases. We'll hear about why the study of animals is crucial, why vaccines are so important, and how data visualisation, like these amazing images that are part of VIVID, is helping in biomedicine.
And actually the subject of this, the hero if you like, is a virus. That's what one virus looks like. And part of the process of what I'm trying to show is how much we know about some viruses. We know actually exquisite detail in some cases. And most of viruses, like most of us, are made up of proteins actually. And not many people realize that the viruses that infect us, we actually make them. We actually build the viruses that then infect us and others. Because what viruses do, of course, is get into our DNA and force us to make copies of themselves. They're too small, they're too simple, they can't replicate themselves. And if I go on to the next slide. So actually, a couple of years ago, I'm going to tell you a little piece of science, not too much, but okay. Maybe, well, somehow didn't come across in the presentation, but virus is actually basically very similar to animals and plants. About half of the viral structure, it's kind of frustrating. Half, I can tell you pretty much exactly, and even tell you how exactly, I can tell you how it's organized down to molecular detail. The other half, I have absolutely no idea. That's both true for animals, plants, and also true for viruses as well. So we have a lot of mystery, a lot left to explore in biology.
All right, so I'm going to assume that you have all heard of Ebola virus. So right now, an outbreak is actually taking place in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where over 50 people have already been infected and 25 people have died as a result of this outbreak. What about Nipah virus? There's also an outbreak of Nipah virus taking place at the moment in India, and so far 14 people have died in the last few weeks. Or even SARS coronavirus, which caused respiratory disease and death all over the world in the early 2000s. Now, all of these viruses have something in common. Before they cause disease in humans, they are all thought to have originated in bats. Bats carry a huge number of different viruses. In fact, they carry more viruses with the potential to infect humans than any other mammal. What this means is that we need to look at bats to try and find these new viruses before outbreaks even happen. What's really interesting is that they can carry these viruses without even getting sick. There's many reasons as to why these bats carry so many viruses. One of the potential reasons is because bats have a completely different immune system to us. Part of the immune system of bats is always switched on and ready to go, whereas our immune system needs a signal before it can get going. What this means is by just looking at this bat, we have no idea what viruses it's carrying. Does it have Ebola virus? Does it have Nipah virus? Or does it have some other unknown virus that's just waiting for the right time, for the right environmental conditions, before it moves into animals or even into humans and starts to cause disease? One of the problems we face is that bats actually carry hundreds of these unknown viruses. So instead of waiting for someone to get sick before we try and investigate it, what I'm trying to do, and what many other people around the world are trying to do, is find these viruses while they're still just in bats. In particular, I've been looking at Australian fruit bats, like the grey-headed flying fox right here. And because we don't really want to disturb the bats, we actually collect the bat urine to try and find these viruses. And as well as being very cute, these bats are also very important to our environment. So we don't want to get rid of them, but we do want to try and stay away from them and work out what viruses they're carrying. So to get the virus from the bat into my lab, I collect the bat urine and then try and see what viruses are present in there. And then I try and work out if these viruses are actually able to cause an outbreak. So can they infect people? Can they cause disease? Can they maybe transmit from person to person? Once we understand more about these viruses, we can use this information to then maybe develop diagnostic tools. So we have an early warning system already set up and ready to go. We might even be able to develop treatments before an outbreak happens. Because we don't really know much about these viruses before we start working on them, I do all my work at the Australian Animal Health Laboratory, which, as Steph said, is a high containment facility. So it allows us to work on these viruses without the risk of people getting infected. And as well as all the amazing engineering that goes into containing these viruses, one of the things that we have to do is we have to shower and wash our hair every time we leave the facility. So we're scientists with very clean hair. Luckily, the viruses that I'm working on are unlikely to cause a deadly disease in humans. But if they were, at ARL I have the ability to move them into an even higher containment section of the facility. So there we're even more protected from the viruses because we're essentially working in an inflatable plastic suit. It has our own air supply, which is the blue tube, and it completely seals us off from any viruses that we're working on. And this is really exciting because there aren't many of these facilities around in the world, and it allows us to work on viruses like Nipah virus and like Ebola virus. So finding the virus that will cause the next outbreak is obviously a massive job. In my PhD of around 3 years so far, I can tell you a lot of information, but only on 2 viruses from just one Australian bat species. But there are over 100 species of bats alone, let alone other mammals or birds or mosquitoes, and all of these have their own set of new viruses that need to be discovered. So that's why it's not just a job for me and my PhD, or even for the CSIRO, but people all over the world are working on finding these new viruses and then preventing the next outbreak from happening.
Thanks very much. So this evening I'll talk a little bit about flu. You know, this year marks the 100th anniversary of Spanish flu pandemic, which killed over 50 million people, and that's an absolute tragedy. What was really very bad about this flu was that it tended to attack people who were in the middle age and people who appeared quite healthy and caused their deaths. So it's been 100 years since then, and there's still so many things that we still don't understand about influenza. And even seasonal flu that we see every year, it causes 500,000 people to die each year. Again, in the current world we live in, that's an absolute problem and something that we need to do something about. Even if you think about last year for us here in Australia, it was the worst flu season that we had on record. Over 200,000 people were diagnosed with influenza, and we saw a lot of deaths last year as well. So as much as we know a lot about influenza now, there are still so many things that we need to do to help improve our quality of life. Now, what about the flu virus? You've probably heard a lot about it, and you hear it by a lot of different names. There are 4 different types of flu viruses. There's A viruses, which are usually in animals and also in humans. There are the B viruses, which infect pretty much just us. There are C viruses, which are really quite mild and don't seem to be associated with any, any seasonal flus, that type of thing. And then there are the new D viruses, which really only appear in cattle and sometimes in pigs. But again, you probably have heard people talk about A flu virus or B flu virus, because particularly last year, one of the A viruses was really serious. But that's what they're talking about when they talk about those sorts of different things, the viruses there. And just a reminder, there are no E viruses yet. Now, flu symptoms. Lots of people say, oh yes, I had the flu. Yeah, how many people have you heard say that? And you know that they probably really only had a cold. Because if they were standing up talking to you and telling you they've got the flu, they probably haven't got it. So there are many viruses that can cause colds, probably about 200 different types of viruses that can cause a cold. And that's why even in the winter, you probably get a couple of different colds across that winter season, because there are a number of different viruses that cause it. But when it comes to flu, there are many other symptoms that are there that differentiate it from a cold. A cold really is just something that's quite, I guess we'd say it was quite mild by comparison. Flu has many other things, and that's like muscle aches, fevers, chills, those types of things. And can even give you stomach problems, can even end up with diarrhea. So it's a far more severe infection, and it certainly has a lot more oomph. Now, flu obviously has these kinds of symptoms, and there are many treatments that are available for flu, and it's really important that people take the right approaches to it, because when you are infected with flu, from about a day before you're showing signs, you can infect others, and right through to even about a week afterwards, you still can infect other people. So we don't say soldier on anymore, we say stay home, keep it at home. So, like I said, the important solutions that we have, and I think that most people would agree that for influenza, the main approach that's going to be most effective for us is vaccination. The flu vaccines were first developed in about the late 1940s right through the 1950s. It wasn't until we understood that flu was caused by a virus that we could even consider what we were going to do about how to treat it. And that really wasn't until, early in this century. So flu vaccines weren't developed for quite some time. And then it was really important to work out a way that we could grow and make these flu vaccines. And fortunately, in the 1930s, they were able to identify that the virus could be grown in eggs. And so flu vaccines are produced in eggs, and you've probably heard that before. So it's really important, and it's a critical process, the development of flu vaccines. And as I say, an Australian played a really important part in the role of developing flu vaccines in eggs. Macfarlane Burnett, who was from the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute in Victoria, he played an early role in that development, that idea of being able to grow up the vaccine and be able to prepare it. And in about 1945-ish, or around that time frame, was the first time we saw mass vaccinations occur. And it started with the US Army, and then shortly after that, it was offered to people. So vaccination really is one way forward for protecting the population. So every year, the WHO and the CDC in America, they're given the task of having to survey what flu viruses are going around so we know what to do for next year. And this is one of the main difficulties that we have with vaccines, and sometimes why we probably don't get the best protection that we would love to have with each vaccine, because it's very much about having a look at what's going on. As I said earlier, there are 2 flu vaccine seasons. So the WHO looks at what's going on in the other season, and from that tries to predict what might happen in our following season. And in that brief time that there is between the 2 seasons, companies have to get out there and rapidly produce that vaccine, get it up to high levels so it's ready to go for when we need it. So vaccine manufacturers are under considerable pressures to try and get things done. And that's probably one of the reasons why we often hear, from year to year, that we're running low on flu stocks and those sorts of things, because it's a very tough, tight timeline to get these things done. And a lot more work needs to be done, and is being done, particularly by CSIRO, around developing new processes for us to be able to produce the vaccine, to try and get it into much higher levels, so that it can get out there, and it can get out there faster and provide that life-saving protection to people.
So you've heard some pretty gory things about how there's all these dreaded diseases around ready to take over. All is not lost, because we at CSIRO are also working at how to make sure that you are able to get medicines and things and treatments that allow you to survive it. So that's the bit I am working on. I'm a physicist, and so hearing all about this stuff is really fantastic. But I have the great pleasure of working with a whole lot of people whose job it is to look at how, oh, this is going too fast, isn't it? How we can take chemistry and biology and also physical devices to be able to create products that help you with your health and well-being. So I don't know about you, but I always thought that polymers were things like nylons and plastic lunch boxes and things like that. But our whole body is made up of a whole lot of polymers. And for a very long time, there was this idea that you couldn't do anything to actually control them. So you'd make a cup of polymer, and you'd have some which were long and some which were short, and they were never very pure. So one of the things that was really important to be able to make good medicines was to be able to control how these polymers are formed, because we're actually all made of a whole lot of polymers. And so what you're looking at there is a whole swag of them. And something that's been really amazing is some scientists in CSIRO have actually cracked that problem, which actually required the chemistry textbooks to be thrown out because they thought that this was absolutely impossible. And they developed this technique which is called raft, and it's an ability to put in an extra element that allows you to get in there and control the length of polymers. So that's something that's really important. It's a really basic part of science, but it allows us to be able to control the chemistry to make the medicine that makes us better. What you're seeing there is, and we'll see if we can stay there long enough, is you can vary the different shapes by playing around with the chemistry, measure it, and be able to, in this case, get the variation into the surface area. Because surface areas are good because that's how your body can interact with the chemical. Whoops, and so here we're looking at the idea then, how do we get to know what are these viruses, what are these polymers, of which viruses are, and what are they, what are the chemicals made of, and how can we actually study them so we know how to create a drug to fight them. Get what looks like a nice wrapping ribbon, which actually is a way of representing the chemicals that are present. And from that, you're able to study it and get to know what's there and find out, can we create a drug or a medicine that can interact with something that will help us to fight it. So here's one example. What you're looking at there is a classic flu virus. You've heard that the flu changes all the time. But one of the things that they asked was, is it possible to actually get the bit in the flu virus that doesn't change? And so therefore, once you've got that, can you create a drug so that even if you didn't get your vaccination and you do get the flu, can you take a medicine that is an antiviral that kills it off? So the bit that's marked there in orange was some fastidious work that was done, being able to find out which bits of all flu viruses do not change. And then what they did was go through, and some other people in, I think, University of Queensland went through and found that there was a particular chemical which was an inhibitor that was able to get into that little bit that was which stays the same in all drugs and create an antiviral drug. And so when you get the flu, you can go and get Relenza, which is an Australian invented drug. It's an antiviral. It's got very low drug resistance, which is good compared to some of the other antivirals. It has one little problem though, and that is you have to sniff it. And that's a whole other thing. You can ask me a question as to why did we do that later. But it's really interesting is that people in Western countries think sniffing goes with something else, which we won't go into here. And so it's not a preferred way. And Tamiflu, which is another antiviral drug, is the preferred one because it's taken orally. So that's drugs, okay? So that's sort of how they're developed for being able to deal with viruses. But I thought I'd also let you know there's other things we do too in manufacturing in order to make sure that we've got things that help us with our health and well-being. So what you're looking at there is the green whistle, and you might have seen it in Bondi Lifesaver or whatever. It's an analgesic which is able to be breathed in through this green whistle. And then when you get a bit dopey because it makes you groggy, it takes away chronic acute pain. You drop because it drops out of your mouth because you get a little bit drowsy, and you can't overdose on it. It means it can be used by paramedics, and it's actually reduced the pains of millions and millions of people around the world. The thing that's really interesting with this is we helped develop this with a company, an Australian company called Medical Devices International. And the thing that's really interesting was that they worked out how to do it for Australia, And they were a nice $3 million small to medium enterprise. Now, they thought, wouldn't it be great if we could sell this to the world? Because we like to make everyone lose their pain. And the chemistry didn't work when you wanted to scale it up. And that's the bother with a lot of polymer chemistry, is that when you go to try and scale up, it's really, really difficult. So our guys went through, and girls, went through and worked out a chemistry that allows it to be scaled. And so that $3 million company is now a $300 million company and exporting this Penthrox, it's called, or the green whistle, all around the world. And that's something that just happened in 5 years because Australian scientists in CSIRO were able to help them. Just to finish off, we're also coming up with ways to actually be able to detect viruses or detect bacteria. And this is something so that we're able to have very quick detection of something which is potentially going to make us sick. So this is a really lovely idea. This is a clever biosensor on a glove, so that you go and scrape the biosensor on something, click your finger together, and it's linked up with something that goes into your mobile phone, and it'll be able to sense what is present and be able to detect, for example, there's a horrible a nerve agent on a door handle which might have been planted there inappropriately, or it might be something where there's a food, a particular bacteria or something in some food, or I think that we saw something there, gym equipment with cold viruses all over it, so that there's a potential to actually be able to have gloves that can then, with a mobile phone, work together to be able to help you be your own, I guess, disease detective. So they're just a couple of things of how we go about using the information that these amazing scientists do, understanding the biology and the way that the viruses and bacteria evolve. And then we're all about trying to make sure that we have ways to solve it, and then also ways to make sure that you can buy it as well. Thanks.
I'd like to say to Energise users, thank you so much for participating, and it really does make a massive difference to the work we do.
Yeah, thank you for using the Energise app. Every piece of information that you give us can give us a clue to find the treasure that benefits you and Australia as a whole.
Thank you very much for using our app.
That data is going to be really, really valuable to us and help us create the future of energy use in Australia.
It's going to be incredibly useful for assisting us in the research that we do and helping us to develop the future of the Australian energy system.
It's really important that we get accurate data about the way you use energy and how it affects you on a daily basis.
Thank you. We value the data that comes out of the Energise app. We will use that information appropriately and look at securing our energy future.
To the users, I would say thank you very much for participating in using this app and giving us really valuable data to help us with our research to improve Australia's energy generation.
Thanks for using the app, and please do fill the surveys more. We need the feedback and all the data from you users to be able to finish the job better.
Thanks very much for sharing your data with us, because we really need it. It's very useful.
Please commit to the Energise app and let the Energise app commit to you.
CSIRO's Data 61, our new mixed reality lab in Melbourne, is at the forefront of digital twin technology. A virtual model of a physical process or object, digital twins have the potential to transform industries including manufacturing, health and agriculture, and even change the way we design our cities and infrastructure. The Mixed Reality Lab houses a state-of-the-art setup of optical cameras and sensing equipment to capture detailed information about a physical object to create its digital twin in a matter of minutes. The technology can be tailored to multiple applications to automatically validate components or processes.
Really, the Mixed Reality Lab is able to be applied to a huge number of domains, and we look at industries like health and biosecurity, agriculture. You could detect objects, you can do things like detect strains on the human body using visual analytics.
Digital twins of manufacturing processes, human movement and cities and infrastructure will significantly improve productivity, reduce costs and transform all manner of industries.
I think we're only scratching the surface on where we can take some of this.
At CSIRO, we innovate for tomorrow while delivering impact today. We develop new products and businesses, giving Australian manufacturing a globally competitive advantage. We create new technologies, industries and jobs for future generations of Australians. From biomedical research to 3D printing and innovative chemical processing, plus technology that could one day supply your electricity and water. CSIRO Manufacturing has more than 400 staff, exceeding 500 patents, facilities in Melbourne, Sydney and Geelong, and partnerships with over 400 businesses. Our biomedical materials translational facility creates new devices and processes to help Australia's biotech and medtech sectors grow. We're also spinning out some of our most innovative medical and pharmaceutical technologies to create new investment and economic opportunities for Australia. By making the first entirely Australian carbon fibre, we're helping create a new industry. While our Flow Chemistry Centre is opening up new markets and products for Australian companies, we're also researching revolutionary new uses for advanced next-generation materials and the manufacturing technology needed to turn into consumer products such as world-leading printable solar cells, sensors and filtering technologies. We're also providing Australian startups the technical and business support to thrive. Our Lab 22 3D Innovation Centre develops high-value metal technologies, as well as manufacturing processes, coatings, sensors and other products. We're also helping scale up the titanium metal industry and identify new markets. Through CSIRO's future science platforms, we're helping solve global challenges while creating new economic opportunities for Australia and new research opportunities for the next generation of Australian scientists. At CSIRO, we do the extraordinary every day.
In the fast-moving world of biomedical devices, time is everything, from saving patients' lives through to devices moving across global supply chains. Sales reps like Kelly play an important role in this process. Part of Kelly's job is to build relationships with hospitals and surgeons, create product awareness, and provide the right devices to the hospital. But keeping track of missing and expiring stock is difficult. The consumption of parts isn't reported in real time, and this increases delivery delays and errors. Enter MyLM. MyLM streamlines biomedical device management, digital charge sheets speed up payment, and make parts processing easy. MyLM puts Kelly back in the driver's seat, from sourcing to tracking, and with a customer 360 view. From anywhere in the world, Kelly can view reports, select and track a device in real time. No more lost or wasted product, and Kelly meets her KPIs.
As the world becomes increasingly globalised, complex and fast-paced, innovations in science and technology with potential to change and shape our future are increasing faster than ever before. So it's more important than ever that we understand these innovations and the impact they may have on our everyday lives. At Australia's leading science agency, CSIRO, we're investigating how our emerging science in robotics, artificial intelligence, precision health, synthetic biology, hydrogen and much more will help solve Australia's greatest challenges. We're looking at how we can use these innovations to help create a better future for us all. At the same time, we recognise that with innovation comes responsibility. That's why we've invested in an exciting new future science platform called Responsible Innovation to help design our future innovations and to ensure society's needs, values and aspirations remain at the heart of everything we do. Drawing on our extensive research expertise, the Future Science platform will build a bridge between Australian society and our cutting-edge research, connecting science and society. It will critically examine these emerging innovations, so we ensure everyone understands the benefit they have on their everyday lives, has a voice in ensuring these innovations are responsible, and that they suit our needs into the future. To find out more about this exciting new Future Science platform, visit csiro.au/responsible innovation.
Collaboration, commitment and partnership are just a few words describing the connection between CSIRO and the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Since 2017, we began to work more closely to address the greatest innovative challenges to help communities prosper, build Australia's strong economy, and contribute to the needs of the country and our neighbours nearby. Our partnership is about delivering greater impact in areas that advance our shared strategic priorities and leverage the strengths and expertise of each institution. From Asia to the US, we're proud to be working on projects that positively impact and build resilience in health and water security, agriculture, climate change, and cybersecurity. Over the past 12 months, we've achieved a lot together. We've increased our focus on the Pacific in Australia's aid program through contributions to the Pacific Step Up and the Office of the Pacific. Over 11,000 Indonesian farming households have benefited from the ERISA program. This program has created innovation links between research institutions and the private sector to benefit Indonesia's smallholder farmers. As part of the DFAT-funded Oz for Innovation program, and in partnership with Vietnam's Ministry for Science and Technology, CSIRO is examining Vietnam's digital economy and potential trends that will affect its development over the next 20 years. This will develop different scenarios of plausible futures for Vietnam's digital economy in two significant industrial sectors, manufacturing and agriculture. When the Prime Minister visited Vietnam in August, CSIRO contributions were highly visible, showcasing Australian science and innovation outside the embassy. The display continues and in 3 months has increased public awareness of Australia's impact through science. CSIRO has partnered with DFAT to help improve regional governments' response to the challenge of illegal fishing. The growth of this threatens the livelihood of many coastal communities in the ASEAN region. Using CSIRO expertise and technology, Australia has been able to provide enforcement authorities with new tools and skills to reduce the prevalence of illegal fishing. Closer to home, the global heads of mission brought together Australia's diplomatic representatives and CSIRO experts. We used this opportunity to highlight the varied capabilities of CSIRO's labs and facilities around the country, organising 31 ambassador tours across 21 CSIRO sites around Australia. Through this engagement, Australia's scientific expertise was described to DFAT's key representatives. In Singapore in June, our ministers took forward important agreements in increasing economic linkages which include promoting innovative Australian science and technology. Additionally, as institutions, we have shared our expertise to help expand our mutual understanding and influence. In the last year, CSIRO staff have joined several courses at DFAT's Diplomatic Academy, and to date, CSIRO experts have presented 4 seminars at DFAT. Australia, through CSIRO, was there for the first steps on the moon, and has been working with NASA for over 50 years. We're continuing our work within the space sector, thrilled by the recent news of $150 million in funding provided to research organisations and businesses in Australia to support the mission to Mars and returning to the Moon. CSIRO is a corporate partner of the Australian Pavilion at Expo 2020 in the UAE. With an expected audience of 25 million, this will be a key part of our annual program as we work to be a strong facilitator in helping build Australia's innovation brand around the globe. Australia is a small nation with a big commitment to scientific excellence and a vision for an innovation-driven future. It is an exciting time for DFAT and CSIRO to continue discussing how we can make an even bigger impact together.
My first Mardi Gras was 1990. I came up from Canberra with friends. I was already working for CSIRO then, and it was the most amazing experience to be part of such a large community event, so diverse, so much love and friendship and sport and colour and light and movement.
Today is we've got two candidates that we've taken into what's called preclinical studies, and that's to actually work out, one, do they work, and two, are they safe before we move on to human trials. And we've now moved through some steps that normally take 1 to 2 years in about 2 months.
Following the emergence of the SARS coronavirus type 2, the causative virus of COVID-19, we were able to very rapidly plug in our system into serving the needs of the international community in testing candidate vaccines.
CEPI, the Coalition of Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, which is set up by Gates Foundation, Wellcome Trust and World Economic Forum, started about 4 years ago, and we've been working with them on developing a platform to respond to disease X. And well, the coronavirus turns up, and so it's the first one that fits into this model. So we had been preparing for this.
I cannot recall an example of where the world science teams have actually worked together in such harmony to try to solve a problem such as perplexing. That in itself gives us a lot of hope in the sense of where we are.
My name's Kashmi and I work with the social media team here at CSIRO. As you know, we are hard at work at tackling the current COVID-19 pandemic. So whether that's undertaking preclinical trials at our Australian Centre for Disease Preparedness for the 2 vaccine candidates, or even creating proteins for the University of Queensland's vaccine candidate, or even just studying the virus more closely to better understand its characteristics, our scientists are very much hard at work. And this includes Dr. Dennis Bauer. So Dr. Dennis Bauer has kindly joined us today to talk about her research, how that relates to COVID-19, and also her journey and how she arrived to a career in STEM. So Dr. Dennis, how are you?
Thank you, I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Of course, no, thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have you here. So I'll start off with an easy question. What is your role at CSIRO?
Yes, so I'm a group leader in the eHealth Research Program, which is CSIRO's digital health initiative and Australia's largest digital health research program. In fact, it's worldwide quite unique in covering the full value chain between basic research, genomics, all the way up to delivering something into the healthcare practice.
So what does your research focus on?
My group focuses on genomics and life science at large. So we develop specifically big data technology, cloud-based machine learning technology, in order to get really the insights of those unprecedented data sets and help extract the value for the healthcare system.
Oh, cool. So essentially use technology to kind of solve really abstract and complex health problems in a way?
Yeah, that's right. So technologies that just a couple of years ago were seeming impossible, but really using the latest in cloud technologies and algorithmic development to basically solve the unsolvable.
Crazy. So I guess in that case, how are you looking at COVID-19?
Yeah, so our research has focused on the genomics of the virus. So with information of the genome from the virus around the world, it is quite interesting that it accumulates mutation, or it can accumulate mutation, and therefore using that kind of information to make the virus testing more robust and get insights from there is basically our role. So identifying what kind of isolate should be used in order to test the virus again.
So you're using your technology to better understand the SARS-CoV-2, the virus that's causing COVID-19.
Yeah, especially with the genome. Like the genome has so much information encoded in there. In fact, it holds its blueprint, basically, so its building plan. And in there are informations like, for example, when it replicates, typically RNA viruses, they just roughly replicate themselves, whereas the SARS-CoV-2 virus, it replicates, or coronavirus in general, they replicate themselves with a proofreading mechanism. So the copy of itself is of higher quality, if you want, than typically RNA viruses would be.
Let's go to your technology. How long does it take for your technology to look at the virus's genome?
Yeah, the virus is actually quite large. So the coronaviruses, they're generally 30,000 bases long, and typically RNA viruses are only 9,000 bases long. So all the technologies that were developed in that space are geared towards those smaller kind of viruses and struggle really with this particular one, especially since the data sets have grown so much, with now 20,000 of them, 20,000 isolates being available around the world. Whereas our technology has come from a human space where we look at 3 billion letters regularly, and therefore we build scalable technologies. So analyzing that kind of data set is fairly straightforward, in quotes, for the technologies that we're developing. So we can do analysis in a couple of minutes that typically would take days to analyze.
That's awesome. So I guess, will your research help with our understanding of the current pandemic?
Yeah, so in the virus at the moment, there's so many mutations in there that we don't really understand what they're actually doing because the clinical data is missing. So hopefully with that data becoming available relatively soon, we can answer questions like, is there a more virulent strain in the outbreak that clinicians should be paying more attention to? Now, all of this is currently not really possible because, as I said, the data is not there. But where the data is the genome itself. So therefore, we can be doing things like molecular tracing, which is an interesting approach of using the genome in order to trace back where an individual might have picked up the virus, akin to contact tracing.
Cool. Okay. For those who don't know, that includes me. What is molecular tracing?
Yeah, so getting a bit more technical here, in that molecular tracing, you can sort of think of taking the fingerprint of the virus. So looking at the genome and all its mutation that it has accumulated, really identified it can identify it quite uniquely. And just like a fingerprint on a crime scene, which you can then compare to a list of suspects, you can do the same thing with the virus. So a patient, taking the virus signature of a patient, we can then compare it to all the other isolates that were in Australia or even around the world in order to find the one that is closest to it, and therefore can likely pinpoint the source of the infection or where that patient had picked up the infection.
Wow, that is such a crazy, it's like a database almost, right?
Pretty much.
Did you always want to be a scientist? And I guess what was your pathway from when you first figured out that you wanted to be a scientist to where you are now?
Yeah, I think as a child, it didn't register that this is what scientists would do. I mean, I was quite fortunate in have computers and programming all around me when I was a child. So therefore, turning a childhood hobby into a profession that also helps people, like in the medical field, is really quite rewarding to me.
That's awesome. So what advice would you give to budding STEM scientists or scientists looking to enter the field of STEM?
STEM and bioinformatics specifically is an interesting field in that it keeps reinventing itself. So yeah, for people that join in late or come in new, they're not really at a disadvantage. They can leapfrog old technology and jump straight into with using the very latest of technologies and be as impactful as established researchers by just doing that. So from my perspective, I'd say just come along and give it a go.
Today's jobs will go extinct and new ones will get invented.
What are they going to be?
Well, no one knows for sure, but heaps of them will be digital.
Digital careers.
This website and all the stuff around it are here to help us get set for jobs of the future.
My name's Katri Lowe, and what do I call myself? I am an urban explorer. That's my name on my business card. So I'm actually travelling around the world at the moment, exploring different cities to see urban developments up close. So I meet locals, I talk to experts, I see what works, what doesn't work, and I blog about it. Well, I started my career as an engineer, working on water infrastructure, and that was pretty digital, using things like CAD and modelling software and engineering programs. But I became more interested in big questions like how can we make cities more sustainable and how can we make cities more affordable? Cities are fascinating because big cities are the future. Billions of people are pouring into them, creating these new challenges no one's ever faced before. There's experiments all over the world trying to solve these problems. So for the last 2 years, I've gone in this crazy adventure, visiting cities from Europe to North America and South America, just learning and posting online. So I guess now my career is digital in a whole different way, because I'm researching and writing and connecting with people through the internet, and that's creating real-life work opportunities. Next, I'm going to work for these programmers in Berlin, and we're using blockchain technology to try to make housing prices more fair and transparent. And so it's a really cool idea. Isn't it weird if I'm saying it's a really cool idea? No, not at all. Great.
Interested in cyber defence, puzzles and code breaking? Cyber Taipan is an Australian youth cyber defence competition for teams of students between 12 and 18 years. Manage the network of a small company, find cybersecurity vulnerabilities, receive points for hardening the system and maintain critical services. Register now at cybertaipan.csiro.au.
Hi everyone, I hope you're all staying well and staying safe. In this update, I wanted to talk about the role that each and every one of you plays in our national response to this global challenge. By now, nearly 6 million people have downloaded the COVID Safe app to help with contact tracing. As the National Science Agency, CSIRO has been involved in reviewing the code and providing technical input into the development of the app. We've never used apps to fight a pandemic before, so there's lots of ongoing work to continuously improve. This week, we published research with our partners in the Global Carbon Project that found daily global carbon dioxide emissions from fossil fuels declined by up to 17% in April as people left airports, roads, factories and offices and stayed home. Looking beyond COVID-19, we're also working on the role that each and every one of us can play in preventing another pandemic. Last year, more than 700,000 people died around the world from drug-resistant superbugs. Part of the problem is overuse of antibiotics. In fact, we did a study with the University of Technology, Sydney, and found 92% of Australians don't know the difference between viral and bacterial infections, leading many people to take antibiotics unnecessarily. Antibiotics, of course, don't work on viruses. This is one pandemic we can all play a role in preventing by understanding how we manage our own health. You should also consider the flu vaccine this year. And you may not know, but CSIRO developed the first drug successful in treating the flu. So whatever the threat, you can rest assured that your national science agency is on the case. Stay well, stay safe, and you'll be hearing from us again soon.
Let's hit the road, give G24 our code. This one's for them good drivers, them great drivers, straight masterpiece. Texting and driving, can't do that in this city. Put your phone down, take a look around. Concentrate, it's not tricky.
Where comes hot damn? Friends with Ambos Fireys, we've got a plan.
Just stop, phones down.